Hello everybody, Demon Red Mist here. And I just remembered I'm not in a chat party, so the audio might be off. Anyway, I won't go into the chat party now. Okay, so yesterday I did a video about some tips on how to learn the Nordschleife circuit. And today I thought, you know what, I fancy doing a bit of a drive, so I thought, I'll go rallying. And I thought, you know what, I'll do a little video because I know I've done a bit of driving recently on rally tracks, and I know it is a format that some may struggle with. So I was hoping to bring quite a slow car, but the one car that I tried, it was all right, but it just couldn't get it sideways a lot. It was too slow. I put the power up, it wasn't very nice, so I thought rather than dick about, I'll just come in a rally car. Okay, so when you go to the rally track, it should automatically select dirt. You will usually have traction control on one, I think, or maybe even three. Personally, I've got this car minimum weight, max tune, just for my personal preference. And I've got the gears quite long, but that's because I don't tend to want to mess about with them. I can go to most of the rally, well, I can go to the longest rally tracks and be fine. I can go to most normal circuits and be fine in this car. And you can take these cars rallying on tarmac. I might show that in a bit. So anyway, a few tips about rallying. Rallying is a completely different style of driving to normal racing. I mean, to a degree, it is simply drifting on dirt instead of tarmac, and it's not just that going sideways is fun, it's about how can you go around the corners quicker. Now, I don't proclaim to be the best at rallying. I'm not amazing, but I can do it. Now, one of the there's a couple of things that people tend to, a couple of traps that people tend to fall into when it comes to rallying. So you know what, I am going to have to go into a chat party because I can't hear myself over the engine. Give me 1 sec. Right, sorry about that. Yeah, the audio is different in the chat party for me. Okay, so there's a couple of things that couple of traps that people fall into. One of them is treating it like a normal race or drive it like you would a normal car. Another is doing things way too late, right? So I'm going to basically drive around as if I was driving on tarmac. That's what I'm going to try and do now. So imagining that I was on tarmac and seeing what happens, and as you can tell, I'm hitting everything. Oh, this car doesn't like that bump. I did just flip it there in a test lap a moment ago. So anyway, as I'm driving around, you can tell that I'm going off in most corners. The brakes aren't particularly doing a lot, and corners like this that should be quite easy, I'm running wide. I'm now out of position for this corner. So like there, running wide. I'm on the brakes, but it's not stopping, and that's because we're on dirt. So one of the reasons for that is on tarmac you'd brake and you'd turn in, you've got the grip, but you can't do that in a rally car on dirt. Your brakes won't work very well, or at least your braking points are going to be miles before if you compared to if you're on tarmac. And the other thing is, even if I slow down earlier, you do have to get the car sideways. But if you get it sideways too late, so for example, I'm driving up to this corner, I'm slowing down, okay, not really sideways, but I'm slowing down enough If you do it too late, you run wide. So if you try and go into a corner, turn into the corner too late, you run wide. So the biggest tips and tricks I can give to rallying is slow down nice and early and already be sideways before the corner. Now I'm going to have to be careful of this bump because this car really doesn't like it. So as I'll try and show, so like in this corner, opposite turn, Scandinavian flick. So before I even get to the corner, I want to be going sideways. So I'm preparing for the corner very early. Okay, I'm not doing it great here, but if I waited until I was at the corner and turn in like I would on tarmac, you just completely miss the corner. Now, when it comes to getting the car sideways for the corner, it helps to know where you're going, right? So, for example, coming up is a left-hand corner. And it's a very simple thing. Some people may have heard of the Scandinavian flick. They may know what it is, and some people might not. The Scandinavian flick is quite simple. There's a left-hand corner ahead of me, so I'm actually going to flick the car to the right, so that when I turn left, it's really going to flick the car sideways. So the flick is turning the opposite way to the upcoming corner, so that when you turn in, you can go sideways. Now admittedly you do have to do that in combination with throttle application, and it's quite simple really. You turn for a left-hander, you turn to the right, lift off the throttle. As you turn left, boot the throttle, and the steering action and the throttle action will kick the rear of the car out, and then you can apply opposite lock. Hopefully I'll be able to show that. Like so. Now this corner tightens, so you have to be a little bit careful of it. Now when you've got corners that join up together, you can use, oh shit, I would have to pick the narrow track, wouldn't I? You can use the exit of one corner as the Scandinavian flick for the next corner. So if you've got a chicane, got to be careful here, this bump. This isn't the best of tracks to use, to be honest. Yeah, so like this corner can automatically lead me into a slide for the next, if I'd have got it right. Now when it comes to throttle application, the best thing you can do is not fear the throttle. The more throttle you use, the more cornering you can do when you get sideways. Obviously if you too much throttle, you'll spin. So you can see I'm pointing the car to the left there so that I can flick it around, and if I'd make a mistake like that, you can always dab the handbrake. Handbrake's a very handy tool for rallying. So here, to dab a brake and a dab a handbrake. Now one of the other things that many people tend to try and do when they're rallying is not actually apply opposite lock. They just try and steer into the corner, and it doesn't work. See if I can clear that jump. Oh, that bump, no. Got away with it. until there. Yeah, so for example, people might come into this corner or this one and they turn in, but they're still trying to turn more. Admittedly, I'm trying to do it wrong and I'm doing it right. So here, for example, getting understeer, it doesn't matter how much I keep applying the wheel to the left, the car just gets more understeer. So a bit like here, if I turn it in, I've got no chance of going left. But if I'd have got the car sideways before the corner, I can absolutely boot the throttle with the opposite lock and around the corner it goes. Now, I do know some people use a bit of traction control while rallying. Personally, I don't know how, because for me, you need those rear wheels to be able to light up. Because it's the spinning of the rear wheels. There we go, nearly flipped it. Yeah, it's the spinning of the rear wheels that actually gives you the grip through the corners. What you don't want is a car that bogs down when you plant the throttle, because you'll have no forward momentum. So this is the corner that I understeered on last time around, and although I sort of mid-corner did apply left steering, it was in combination with what I'd done on the way in. Oh, got that one wrong, no. Now you might notice that when I am actually turning into a corner, when I'm turning in the right direction for a corner, I'm not on the throttle. Come on, let's clear the bump. Oh shit. Okay, it doesn't like that bump. Right. So anyway, a few tips there for you. What I'll do now is I'll go to one of the other rally tracks, which is a little bit nicer. I mean, that one's alright. It's better in the other direction, to be fair. But I'm going to go to a track that shows some different types of corners. And the Fisherman's Ranch. Okay, now this is... it's a bit of a beast of a track, to be fair. It's long, it's unforgiving, it's very easy to fuck up. As far as tracks go on this game, it's kind of the Nordschleifer of the rally tracks. Hell of a lot of corners, quite a few hairpins, some very good fun sections, and some fucking evil ones. Now, I am going to hit the barriers somewhere around this track, but what I want to try and show is about, as I mentioned on the previous track, preparation. So basically, unlike in normal driving where you drive up towards a corner, bang the brakes on in as straight a line as possible, and then turn into the corner and go, with this it's much different. You have to, on approach to the corner, brake very, very early, then prepare the car for your turn-in point, and your turn-in point is still going to be before the corner. Brave bastard. Yeah, so if your turn-in point is before the corner, then you have to do your Scandinavian flick before that. But before you can do your Scandinavian flick, you need to have got the car slowed down enough so it elongates preparation zones for corners. Now, I'm not going to call it braking zones for corners because I can't say I've ever gone, right, brake at 200 metres for this corner in rallying or anything like that. It's more just instinctive on having crashed at corners. But it's all about, the way I learnt about it is, it's all about the preparation before the corner. Slight dab of handbrake. So you see there, I was aiming nowhere near the corner, but it's all in preparation for the corner that is approaching. Now, jumps in rallying is an interesting prospect. I'm not pushing here, to be fair. I'm just trying to do things kind of slow motion. Oh, too tight on the way in, dickhead. Now, when I first started trying to do rallying, there were two main things that really stumped me. One was hairpins, and another was long corners. But I wouldn't say I fear either of them anymore, but that's because I learned about, as I mentioned, the preparation. Now, I've not done a Scandinavian flick there, but that's because I was hard on the handbrake and I fucked up. So no Scandinavian flick and I fucked up. Also being too gentle on the throttle here. Yeah, so if I get the car sideways, it easy goes sideways in the other direction. Now, admittedly, on some tracks and some corners, it's not easy to get a Scandinavian flick in, I find. And that's where it does become quite difficult. And quite often, I mean, I've noticed when doing my drifting, even though I know I need to do the Scandinavian flick, the amount of times that I do actually forget. Ooh, that was too much too soon. Now, I've always said I do find it difficult to talk and drive. Talking and rallying, even harder. Now, I am kind of waiting to get to a couple of the hairpins which are coming up. There's hairpins, as I said, I always used to hate hairpins. Hairpins all comes down to your entry, your throttle application, and if need be, your handbrake. This car, for some reason, is not liking landing after bumps. Right, so hairpin, handbrake to kick that rear end around, and there's got a couple of hairpins coming up. So Scandinavian flick, plenty of throttle, handbrake if you need it. I'd have been better off in a lower gear. Now, one tip I would normally give when going over jumps is to come off the throttle, because then when you land, if you're not landing level, like all four wheels at the same time, you don't randomly spin as one wheel lands and it's trying to power you. Now, another feature that people will use when rallying is bouncing them off the limiter, and it's a simple tactic really. Now normally in a race car, if you're bouncing off the limiter, you're doing something wrong. But in rallying, if you're bouncing off the limiter, you need to check whether you are still increasing your speed or whether your speed is not increasing. So there, as I was getting the wheel spin, the speed was increasing until the final moment. So here, speed's increasing all the way up to 80 miles an hour. Now that wheel spin is what is propelling me forwards. And this is one of the reasons why I don't know how people could do rallying with traction control on. Not doing very well here, Dave. How to do rallying? Not like this. Yeah, so it's the wheel spin is propelling forward. Without the wheel spin, it's a lot harder. Like here, I'm powering to propel myself forward, but with traction control on, I'd struggle to do that. So let's pop traction control on, shall we? I'll go to 3 because that's what people usually have it on. Now it may still give me a bit of... See, that's killing my power. Oh, no, I don't want to slow down there. Oh, it's not kicked out. It's just dying. See, no! Come on, I want to go. Now, personally, I wouldn't care if this was faster. In my mind, I'm flat to the floor with my throttle, so my rev should be going up. I should be there. Power. Where is it? So it's not kicking the rear out at all. Now this is where, as I mentioned, people will find themselves sometimes steering more and more into a corner. Now if you've got traction control on, I could understand why, because the throttle's not kicking the rear out, so you steer into the corner but it's not turning. So you're not getting the turning from the front wheels, and you're not getting the turning from the rear wheels. Oh my god, this is all... I fucking... Yeah, don't rally with traction control on, folks. Now when you've got a jump that is on a corner, turn your wheels if you need to, or hit the jump on an angle relevant to the landing zone. Now, admittedly, you do have to have pretty quick hands for rallying, but what I would say is don't grip your steering wheel. You kind of have to let the steering wheel flow and slide in your hands. The disc jump, hit it sideways for the landing area, oh, without hitting the fucking barrier. But yeah, that's a jump. I'm gonna go back to that actually. Yeah, so this is a jump, obviously, and then straight after it, the road curves to the left. Well, quite obviously, if you hit this bump in a dead straight line in this direction, you're going to be heading straight towards the barrier. So the aim here would be, so as you're approaching, to have the car slightly in towards the left. Now when you land, it could get messy, but when you land, you should be facing the right sort of direction for the corner. Whereas if you approach it dead straight, you won't be. Although, if you do approach it straight and slow down enough, you'd be fine. Now, if you've got a straight or a section, I thought that was a left hairpin into a right straight away, but it's a double. Ah, needed handbrake. Yeah, if you've got a section that has got multiple bumps or jumps on it, you have to be very careful of getting sideways on those. And that's because if you get two sideways on one, you might hit the next two sideways, and it's just going to be a knock-on effect then. Prepped a bit too early for that corner then. Now I can honestly say that I haven't quite memorised the rally tracks as well as I can race tracks, not this longer one anyway. Okay, so big jump, gonna hit this one straight, because the landing zone is straight and it gives me time to get in for the double hairpin. If I'd have hit that jump on an angle, I'd have landed facing the wrong direction in one way or another. Now what I would say is, if you are new to rallying or you've not done it a lot, don't be afraid of going for a powerful car. Personally, I find more power is better. Obviously, there's a limit to that, really. I mean, I wouldn't go bring in a road car with like 800 brake horse around here. Okay, so I know my driving wasn't the best, but at least you got to see how to do it and how not to do it. What I'm going to do now, though, I'm going to do this quickly, is I'm going to jump into the car that I was going to use. Now, it is a decent car, but wasn't good enough, right? So the rally car that I was using just then had about 640 brake horse, I think. Let's double check. Yeah, 642 brake horse. Now, I tuned this Subaru up to 400 brake horse. I think as standard it has about 220 something. Oh, 280. Right, okay, so I'll go with that. Now I'm going to keep it light. Now it's on the dirt setting, so I look at this car and go, okay, well this is a four-wheel drive car, it should be alright. Now the four-wheel drive rally cars, they do have a torque distribution, so you can choose how much power is going to the front wheels and the back. Personally, I like to have 30 going to the front and 70 to the rear. I like my rear to be looser, and so I can power around corners. In many of the road cars you don't get that torque distribution, so with this car I did find it a little bit tricky. It didn't quite do everything I wanted it to. Now just a rear wheel drive car may have been different, but I want to show what it's like going with a lesser powered car. Now as I said, this car's not bad, but it won't help you necessarily learn how to do what you need to do, and one of the reasons for that is it hasn't got the power. Now the processors would still be the same. Prep for the corner early, oh, it's not too early, but as I say, it hasn't quite got the power to get the rear end out. And okay, yes, I know it's four-wheel drive, but it would have a defaulted torque distribution in it, which normally is about 40-60 or 45. Actually, thinking about it, this car might have a torque distribution. Let me check. Yeah, it does. Right, so it's 35-65. Now that for me is not enough, but for some people I know that that would give quite a loose rear end. But this car, like I say, just hasn't quite got the power to really slide around the corners. So when you get to longer ones, it's not quite, it hasn't got the power to kick the rear end out. And even if you do get a nice big Scandinavian flicking, it still hasn't quite got the power. So if you were learning to rally in this particular car, and you may see me doing things like turning in towards the corner a lot more, right? So if you were to rally in this particular car, you'd be learning all the wrong tricks, because the way to really get the most out of this car while rallying is going to be turning in towards the corner more, but it's not the way it should be done. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a nice car to drive, but for me, on dirt, I make sure I don't crash before I say what I'm about to say. I want the rear end to be out more. I want, when I'm planting my foot on the throttle, for it to really push me out of a corner. So there, I wanted it to kick the rear out, it's just not doing it, which means I'm not getting sideways. So if you were to learn in this car, and it kind of wants you to just keep turning in towards a corner to get around it, if you go to the big proper rally cars, you'll struggle, because they'll handle in a completely different way. See there, I want the rear end to kick out. Now I'm using a lot of handbrake here to try and help get sideways, but not everybody has a handbrake button set. Okay, I'm going to hit this jump sideways, And because I had to turn to try and straighten it up, all out of shape. Come on, kick the rear a bit for me. So there, it wants me to steer more to get around the corner, and I shouldn't have to be trying to do that. So, let's say, not a bad car to drive, but it'll teach you all the wrong tricks. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to do now to sort of finish up on this is I'm going to take the rally car, the Evo that I was in, to a tarmac track. Because I did find it very, very useful taking a rally car to a tarmac track. It gives, in a way, a much clearer view of how to go about doing driving in the rallying style. I just need to find. Okay. Could go. No, don't want to go to Tsukuba. Should have thought about which track I was going to use before I decided I was going to do this. Yeah, go on. I'll go Brazil. Right. Personally, when using a rally car on tarmac, you can put, if you want, the Racing Super Soft tyres on and drive it like a normal race car. They are fucking brilliant. Personally, I like to drive them on Sports Soft tyres. And the reason for that is they haven't quite got the grip. So when you're on the tarmac, there is a benefit to going sideways. Now, being at tarmac, it's going to put me on road settings, which is fine. Yeah, so Sports Soft tyres. Right. Now, it's been a while since I've driven a rally car around this track. Now, if I try and drive now as if I'm driving, I'll try driving as if I'm driving a normal race car on normal tyres. Admittedly, I'm on sports tyres, so I'm not going to have a lot of grip. Lots of understeer. Now, don't get me wrong, it is more than drivable. It just doesn't have a lot of grip as I get into a corner or as I put my foot down on the way out. And because of the aggressiveness of the gears, it's very difficult to be smooth on the throttle. So like I say, it is drivable. But then, this is not how I would drive this car on the tarmac. So basically take exactly the same approach as on the dirt. Brake early. Get your Scandinavian flick in without going on the grass. Even throw in a cheeky handbrake if you want to. So even though I got onto the grass, I was able to keep my momentum going forward. Now that's a lot more fun than understeering around the corner. Oh, too aggressive, too aggressive. So by doing this, it does give you a clear view of what the Scandinavian flick will actually do for you. Did it too soon. But I don't mind, because it's fun. Now, I did slow down too soon last time. Should have kept it in second gear. Now, okay, you may look at this and go, oh, well, it's just drifting. Well, kind of, yeah, it is, really. But isn't that what rally cars do on the tarmac? It's extremely fast drifting. It is very, very useful having a handbrake button. Personally, I have it a button that's very close to my thumb. Now, I'm still not getting fully sideways, as you can tell, around some corners. But that's down to my preparation on the way into a corner. Wouldn't be right if you didn't do a bit of grass cutting in a rally car. Oh, too soon, Junior. Now, obviously, it's a very different level of grip to being on the dirt, which is why going from dirt to tarmac, I am braking a bit early and prepping way too soon for a lot of the corners, because I'm still in the dirt mode. I went up to third, didn't I? Should have kept it second. Now, you'll have noticed there that I kept having to lift off the throttle, and that's because if I applied any more steering, I'm not going to get more grip. Too aggressive again, you dickhead. We'll keep going though. First gear's too short to use it to kick the rear out there. Now, admittedly, I wouldn't necessarily advise using the handbrake around a corner like that, but I do find it good fun. Ah, come on, Dave. Didn't get that right at all. I was so focused on making sure I was in second gear, I didn't boot the throttle. And it's interesting, or hopefully it's interesting, that you can see that if I'm not booting the throttle properly, understeer wide. Whereas the reason for going balls deep on that throttle is because you need it to get you sideways, and if you're not, like I wasn't then, you'd end up relying on the handbrake. So yeah, but again, that allows you to, I mentioned earlier about don't fear the throttle, right? And that is something that I found I did have to keep telling myself when I came to doing rallying, is don't fear the throttle, right? Fear the brake, yeah, because if you brake late, there's fuck all you can do to save yourself in rallying. But don't fear the throttle. The throttle is your friend. Steer with the rear. So this was the lap that I did, trying to drive it as in a normal fashion. And like I say, if it had racing tyres on, it's a great car. You can drive it normally. But personally, it's a rally car, so it shouldn't be driven normally. Now the car itself inherently through a lot of corners will want to go sideways, as long as, well, turns 1, 2 and 3, it wants to go sideways at turn 2 because it's going from a left-hand corner into a right-hand corner, and it's effectively an automatic Scandinavian flick, alright? A bit like I mentioned. So driving this car normally, I would have to be very aware of going through combination corners. Now, admittedly, I'd happily race this car normally, or the rally cars normally, on sports soft tyres, no problem. I do just like to... I enjoy the fact that you can take them sideways quickly around corners. So now we're on to the first lap that I did, where I was trying to do it in more of a rally driving fashion. Now, for all I know, the lap times may have been slower. I don't think I've got a particularly good lap in. But it ain't more fun doing it normally. Nice big Scandinavian flick. Lovely sideways. And now, you see, one of the reasons for doing this on the tarmac in this car is, by doing it on tarmac, you get to feel everything that's happening. And you get to easily see what's happening with the car, and you should know that it's not because of the surface. So if you're sideways through a corner, it's not because it's a slippery surface. You're sideways because you've put the car sideways. And when it comes to driving on dirt, you're better off sideways. Got prepped for that way too soon. But by being sideways, just absolutely fucking nail it on the way out or through the grass. Good camera angle. Brave cameraman. I got that wrong, that entry wrong, that's massively wide. But when it came to learning rallying and transferring it onto a racetrack and driving on there, I didn't mind about going off the track, because if you can go off the track and still be in full control of the car, then you should be alright when you get to a rally track. Cameraman was optimistic about me getting to the apex then. Yeah, not enough. Not a big enough Scandinavian flick. Now, admittedly, I know this from drifting. The size of your Scandinavian flick has to be relevant to the corner that you are approaching and the speed that you are doing. So if the car is not getting sideways and you're using a lot of throttle, it could be because your Scandinavian flick is not a big enough movement. So that's a... it looked like it was going to be a big Scandinavian flick, but to be honest, it was more of a sort of lean right turn left. It needs to be a proper flick. A quick flick of the steering, like that. See, that got very, very sideways. It was perhaps a little too aggressive on the flick. No flick there, it's going to understeer. That's why the handbrake was used. Automatic Scandinavian flick, and look, lovely sideways all the way around the corner. So that was an automatic Scandinavian flick because the exit of one corner fed into the next. That was just bad driving. So this is one of the reasons why many people would recommend, especially for learning drifting or even for rallying, take a rally car to Suzuka Short, because you take it sideways round there and you see the difference of flowing corners that lead from one to another, that give you the automatic Scandinavian flick. If you then go somewhere like Monza, okay, you got the first couple of chicanes, but then after that there's only really Ascari that's going to give you an automatic Scandinavian flick, so your Scandinavian flick would have to be rather large. See, not a flick. That's more of a turn. It's going to understeer. That's why the handbrake was used. Now, as I'm driving round, as soon as I do the flick, I know if it's big enough or not, because whether the rear end is coming out or not. So more aggressive flick on this occasion. So I stayed on the track this time, because it was more aggressive than the previous corner, but less aggressive than the previous time. I wasn't in position to do a Scandinavian flick there, so I used the handbrake and way too much throttle. Now, the Scandinavian flick, it is, well, it's crucial, really, to have any hope of getting the car sideways. So if I just approach this corner, okay, I was sideways, but sliding off the track. You bastard. But this time, I'll try and get a decent Scandinavian flicking. Not very good steering action, that. I mean, the car went sideways nice and early. Back it up a little bit more. So as I turned in then, the car automatically wanted to slide. Now, the bigger that flick... Please don't reset me, you bastard. You're going to reset me, aren't you? Oh, no, got away with it. Yeah, so the bigger the flick, the more slide. See, a real big flick from one way to the other and the car's automatically going sideways, and it's that in combination with the throttle usage that'll get you going sideways around the corners. Anyway, that's going to be it for me tonight on this, so have a good one, folks, and I'll see you all again soon.